Good evening, my dear viewers, and welcome to another Alliteration gaming video. My name's Levi, and today we're going to be doing our very first Star Wars Unlimited deck profile, and we're going to be doing it on none other than my favorite leader to play right now, Bossk hunting his prey. So before we actually get into this deck, I want to talk about Bossk decks as a whole just a little bit because I've been playing a lot of them and I've been having some pretty great success with a few different variations. I think Bossk is super viable on many different colors right now. I think green is probably the best of them, but that's not where the conversation ends because I've been playing some very different green builds lately. I think the most popular one by far is the super aggro ECL build that we're going to be talking about today, but I've also been toying around with a 30 hit point green base build that just plays all of the ramp cards and all of the big chungus things, turbos out crate dragons, does all that great stuff, and it's really fun. I've been having some serious success with it, so you might see that one on the channel later on. But for today though, we're going to be focusing on the certainly much more fun, very low to the ground aggro ECL build of Bossk. We're going to be swinging hard, we're going to be swinging fast, we're going to be collecting bounties non-stop, and most importantly, we're going to be hunting our prey. So let's take a deep dive into this aggro ECL Bossk deck and see what it's really all about. And so of course, we're going to kick this deck profile off with the leader himself, Bossk, the main man. What is this guy really all about? Well, he's all about collecting those bounties, guys. On our leader side here, we're going to be able to exhaust him to deal 1 damage to a unit with a bounty. We're also allowed to give it 1 power for the phase if we'd want. This is really only relevant if they put bounties on your guys and you're into dealing your own guy a damage in order to give him a power. We don't play anything with an inherent bounty in this deck for that to come up. The real value of this, it just means that the second we put a bounty on something, it's only got X amount of turns to live, and that's basically X is its health total. If we bounty up their 3 health guy on turn 1, it's got 3 turns to live until this Bossk ping is going to finish it off, you know, barring any shields or healing that may or may not get applied to it. This ping damage is really good. We've seen stuff like this on guys like Vader or like Bo-Katan. A free damage is just very strong, especially when it's literally free, no cost. The only thing is you have to interact with the unique bounty mechanic, which is not a hard thing to do in this deck at all. We've got great bounties and it never feels like we're playing them just to make our leader work. It's a full synergistic package. And then on our flip side here, Bossk is just kind of a beast, man. Flipping on 5 resources as a 4/6, we're almost Boba, significantly less survival because that 7 health to that 6 is a huge difference. But the 4 power means that we can get just as aggressive as Boba Fett decks can sometimes. But the words on this side are not irrelevant in the slightest because when we collect a bounty, we're allowed to collect that bounty 1 more time. We only get to do this once per round, but this right here is insane. This sets up so many crazy plays with some of the bounties. The amount of value that you can get on your flip turn when you get a really nice double up is really, really insane. This deck lives and dies off of having very impactful flip turns, doing a big bounty hunter combo, and then trying to get some overwhelm damage in somewhere with one of your units that's collecting the bounty. That way you can defeat units and hit their base at the same time, collect your bounties, and then just get absolutely crazy with it. This guy can pump out a lot of damage from the get-go, and if he's not answered, especially when some ramp brings out a little bit early, you win a lot of games just by getting super aggressive and blasting 4 damage every turn with Bossk and just controlling the board while you're at it. He's a super powerful leader. I knew the second they revealed this guy, I wanted to play this cute little bounty minigame that was going on, but I really thought it was going to be a bit more of like a wombo combo magical Christmas land type of situation. You know, oh, when I draw every bounty and they don't interact with me at all, my Bossk deck is great. But it's really not like that. You can just fill your deck with a lot of synergistic items, and a lot of them are pretty tough to interact with unless your opponent is playing really targeted upgrade removal, which is something that was being played a lot at the beginning of the Shadows of the Galaxy format, but it really feels like it's fallen off. So Bossk and his bounties here get to run a little bit amok. But enough about Bossk, let's get into the deck itself. Our first card in the deck is going to be none other than our base. Our base of choice here is going to be Energy Conversion Lab, 25 hit points, but we get to once per game play a unit from our hand and give it ambush as long as it costs 6 or less. This ability is insane. ECL really needs no introduction into the Star Wars ecosphere, but our deck is really, really all in on a base like this. The ambush from this is generally how we're going to get the most value during our flip turn, how we're going to guarantee the collection of a bounty, and it's just going to ensure that our aggro stays up, our board stays up, and we really maintain the advantage that we take during these early game turns. And so we're going to shove our dynamic duo off to the side here and get into the main deck itself. Now I think in future Star Wars Unlimited deck profiles, I'll typically start with the units as they're usually the most important thing in a deck, but given how important our bounties are to the whole flow and ebb of this Bossk deck, we're going to kick things off with upgrades so that we can get into those bounties. So the first one here is we've got 3 copies of Price on Your Head. This is arguably the best bounty in the deck. It's a 2-cost bounty that lets us put the top card of our deck into play as a resource. This is so strong. Effectively, Bossk means that nothing can really escape it once the Price on Your Head comes down to them. If you draw this on turn 1, you slap it onto their 3 health unit, probably a 3 health unit unless it's like an R2 or something like that, and in 3 turns, once you get to your 4 resource turn, 3 pings will kill it, you'll go right to 5, and then you can flip Bossk and start getting crazy with it. On top of that, if you instead slap this on something when you're on your flip turn, having Bossk or anything take out the Price on Your Head bounty unit, you get to collect a second time and you go from 5 to 7 and then resource from hand to 8 on the next turn. Jumping from 5 to 8 is pretty loco, so that's also a really fantastic play. It's pretty much the thing that you want to see in your opening hand every time, and oftentimes it's why people will either pass or just even choose not to play a unit on the first turn because they're so scared of you getting that Price on Your Head ramp. Next up, our second most impactful bounty is going to be Triple Bounty Hunter's Quarry. This one's amazing, being a 1-cost bounty that lets us search either the top 5 or 10 cards of our deck for a 3-drop is just nuts, man. 1 cost to play a 3-drop is really wild. Even when you get a 2-drop off of this, it doesn't feel too bad either. This card's just very good. And of course, if you get that double up on the flip turn with this guy right here, being able to grab 2 3-drops off of your 1-cost upgrade is just nuts. All for the simple cost of killing a guy and collecting the bounty. There's a lot of really great targets that we'll get into later, but all you need to understand is that free board swarm is really strong. Next up, we're gonna rock with 2 copies of Rich Reward. Now this is when things start getting a little bit Christmas landy, but man, when this card is good, guys, it's so good. A bounty for a 1 cost and giving 2 experience tokens, 1 to 1 unit each, is on paper not the most impressive thing in the world. You don't really want to see this one early game, as more than likely what will happen is you'll put it on, and then by the time you play one of your own units, they're usually going to use the bounty guy to trade into that unit, and then their guy will die. You'll collect this, but you'll have no unit. So you have to be really careful with this one, but it still is going to be in here in some capacity because, I mean, for one, guys, every single bounty in our deck has the hidden text of just this unit takes a damage every single turn because of our boss leader side, and that's good. But there's going to be some really impactful flip turns where you get to put this Rich Reward, ping something with Bossk, flip Bossk, ECL something into the Rich Rewarded guy, and then you're going to get 2 tokens 2 times. You'll slap 2 on Bossk and make him a 6/8, and then whatever you ECL'd in, or even another unit that hasn't attacked yet, can also collect 2 tokens, and suddenly you're pumping out 4 extra damage on that turn, and it's really strong. So that's why we only play 2 copies, but it's a worthy inclusion in this deck. And our last bounty is going to be a pair of guild targets. This is a 0-cost bounty that's going to deal 2 damage to their base, or if it's unique, deal 3 damage instead. This is again another part of how we can go so aggro so fast, and sometimes even outrace Sabine under the right circumstances. Being able to double this on your flip turn, a 0-cost bounty doing 6 damage to their base is totally nuts. You can set up a lot of really high damage turns, ECL in something with Overwhelm for 3 or 4 damage, burn them for 6 with this, blast for boss with 4, attack with anything else, and you're looking at 15 damage kind of average on your deploy turn if you see a guild target. About the same if you see a Rich Reward. If you get to add, think about it this way, if you get to add 2 tokens to 2 things that have an attack, you're getting an extra 4 damage out of it, but you're getting that permanent damage. Bounty Hunter's Core will probably have you 2 guys that are going to do some amount of damage like that anyway. It's just really good. These 10 bounties all work together for us to have some really impactful flip turns and just help us kill things off in the early game effortlessly. And that's our bounty lineup. It's only 10 of them. I say only, it's a pretty hefty amount for, upgrades. However, I really wish I could play like a 3rd guild target or something. It's just hard to fit in, and we have to play some events in this deck too, so we really can't play as many, we have to have units in our deck, guys. We need to have units that are going to kill their units and collect those bounties and also deal damage to their base. We are an aggro deck, so we do need units, but I think 10 is a really solid number. And now moving on to those units, we're going to start with our ground guys. So the first is the best 2-drop in the deck, guys. This is First Legion Snowtrooper. I've always been a big fan of this card here. When you're swinging on a damaged unit, you get +2 and Overwhelm. It's just a handy ability on a 2/3. However, when you think about it in the context of this deck, Bossk is always dealing 1 damage to a unit with a bounty. This is always going to swing for 4 on anything that gets bountied, and that is just so strong. Being able to just have a bounty, a ping, and then swinging with this to take out any 5 health unit is amazing. We're killing leader Sabines like that. We're killing techs, we're killing DJs, like we're killing so many 5 guys, we're killing Canaans. Like this is just an amazing ability in tandem with our boss ping, and it's really, really good. There's a lot of scenarios where sometimes you really just got to take something out that's like, you know, just super threatening really early on. Using the energy conversion lab on this guy to just take out a 5 health thing, it's a great and totally fine play. I love the First Legion Snowtrooper in this deck. Our next slightly less impactful 2-drop is we got triple Gamorrean Retainers. These guys are okay. It's just a 3-2 that becomes a Sentinel if you've got another green unit. A 3-2 with upside is pretty much a fine place to be. We actually don't run very many green units in this deck, so he's a little worse than he is in other places. However, he is underworld traded, and we do play Maul in this deck very heavily. So he's still pretty good for that regard. Vader can also not bring him out, which is a bit of a downside. He's not a villainy. If you really kind of want something else that's staying in that same stat line, I think it's fine to play Viper Probe Droids in this slot instead, and I was playing them for quite a while. You could also play Mercenary Gunships just as another 3 power. I think whatever you have in this slot, as long as it's a 3-2, I think you're fine. And then you'll notice as we're going through these ground unit 2-drops here, you're not seeing something that a lot of the boss decks are playing. You're not seeing Dengars, and you're not seeing Stolen Land Speeders. I think those cards are traps. When people talk about how, you know, Bossk is this like stars aligning Christmas land deck, those cards are what I think of. I was playing those cards for a long time, and I get it. When you see Dengar and you see your 1 or your 0 cost bounty on turn 1 together, or you see the Dengar and the Stolen Land Speeder, or the Stolen Land Speeder and the 1 cost bounty, and everything comes together, it feels great. But sometimes those cards are just dead as heck, and I think it's way better to just play a lot of consistent 3-power 2-drops. The Stolen Land Speeder is great conceptually when you're playing a deck that doesn't want to play a unit, so that way you can still get your bounty stuff off. Or you could just play your own threatening units and start to pressure them right out the gate while they think they're getting ahead by holding back against you. No, we're a fast deck. We don't care about that. We're trying to get aggro and get fast. So I like strong 2-drops like these instead of kind of those gimmicky 1-drop. With that rant aside, moving into the 3-drops, we've got triple Super Laser Technician. I mean, this is just the best ramp card in the game, dudes. It's Super Laser Technician. When he dies, he becomes a ready resource. That's insane. Obviously, in this deck, we play ECL, so we're able to trade and swing and put him as a resource basically any point in time that we need. He's really good. If you get an early Bounty Hunter's Quarry off, you can sometimes grab him and then be able to cheat the ramp that way. Being able to pay 1 for a Super Laser Technician is pretty insane, guys. He's just got good plays, and of course, if you really high roll some games, you're going to find Price on Your Head and Super Laser Technician in the opening hand. They're going to play a ground unit, and they're going to have no way to bounce it or heal it or anything, and you're going to get to go turn 1 Price on Your Head, turn 2 ECL in the Super Laser Technician. You'll steal 2 resources between this guy and the Price on Your Head, and then you'll flip Bossk on turn 2 and start blasting him for 4. And again, it sounds like a high roll, and I mean, it kind of is. I mean, you have to draw 2 cards in your deck, and they have to not interact with you, but that does happen sometimes. And even when it's not like your deck is bad by any means. These are just like, you know, ceilings we can reach sometimes. Continuing with our 3-drops, I've got triple Phase 2 Dark Trooper, or sorry, Phase 3 Dark Trooper. I mean, it's a 3-cost 3/3 Sentinel, and if it happens to fight anything and survive, it's going to get an experience token. This card's just good. Like, Cell Block Guard was already good. This is Cell Block Guard with upside. You can find it off of Bounty Hunter's Quarry. It's our Sentinel that we can grab in a pinch off of Quarry or Vader. I mean, it's just a good card. A lot of times too, if they're going to play like a 2-power ground unit, it's not a bad thing to just use the energy conversion lab on this guy, kill their turn 1 play, survive, and leave behind a 4-power Sentinel. Not a bad play by any means, and it's something I do pretty often. Going into our 4-drop ground units, we are playing triple Jango Fett. This might be the best card in the deck. Jango Fett is an absolute beast. This guy is a 4-cost 3/6, and when he attacks anything with a bounty on it, he becomes a 6-power guy and gains Overwhelm, and when he attacks and defeats something, you draw a card. This dude is just nuts. Jango alongside a 0 or 1 cost bounty is pretty much what you want on your 5-resource flip turn every single time. Throw a Bounty Hunter Quarry on it, ping it with Bossk, flip Bossk, ECL in the Jango, kill it, draw a card, maybe deal 3 or 4 overwhelm damage, double collect your bounty, in this case the guild target, that's 6 more to base, 6 with 4 overwhelm, that's 10 to base, another 4 to base here from the Bossk, and it's just getting out of hand really fast, and he draws a card. We dump our hand pretty aggressively in this deck, playing all of these bounties, so having just the slightest amount of card draw is really nice for us. However, when we're not ECLing in Jango, maybe we didn't draw him in this game, we do want another really good target, so that's where a pair of of Steadfast battalions are going to come in. ECL Steadfast with a 5-cost leader with ramp in the deck is a tale as old as time. It's one of the things that made Bubba Green so strong, and just ECLing out this 5-5, actually a 7-7 with Overwhelm is really good. You're going to win a lot of matchups for free just off of like, I ramped first, or, you know, I got my 5-cost leader out and then I'm holding my ECL Steadfast. You're going to flip your 6-cost leader and instantly die. If you're on 5, you're going to flip your Boba or your Krennic and you're just going to instantly die to this. I mean, it's just really, really strong. Steadfast plays just kind of win games for free sometimes. Next up, we're going to get into our top end a little bit with these ground units, and that's going to be 3 copies of Maul. Maul is an absolute monster of a card. 7/6 7-drop with ambush and overwhelm, and when he fights, you can choose all of that damage to go to one of your other underworld units, and that ability is not negligible at all, given that we've got this little Gamorrean underworld guy, we've got Jango Fett who has 6 health, I mean literally the same as Maul, and he's an underworld we can pass the damage to. Bossk is an underworld we can pass the damage to. Maul is just an absolute beast in this deck, and he's so good. Ambush Overwhelm is a devastating combo. The fact that we're typically going to be doing Ambush Overwhelm on our ECL turn with either Jango or Steadfast, and then we have it again on the 7-resource turn with Maul. Pair that with something like a guild target or a damage bounty, and oh my god, the surprise damage from hand just really goes hard. One of the big reasons that like Aggression Villainy had a tough time existing, especially in set 1 when Sabine was so on top as the aggro deck, is because Sabine has the reach. She's got the surprise damage from hand, you know, the K2s, the ping from the leader, the For a Cause I Believe in. Villainy aggro decks just didn't have anything like that, but now we've got a lot going on between 2 different things that we can ECL with Overwhelm and Maul as this, again, surprise damage from hand, combined with the guild target. You know, you can be completely locked out of the board by Blue Villainy or something, slap a guild target on their guy, ping it with Bossk, send Maul in, 4 or 5 Overwhelm, 3 to their base, boom, they're just dead. Again, it's just really good reach. With 6 ramp cards in your deck, Maul, if you get 1 ramp, is going to come out the same turn as your opponent's 6 cost deploy leader, who most of the time have 7 or less health. So the fact that you can just get to that flip turn on your opponent's side, be at 7, have a Maul in hand, and just kind of just trap them. And they basically have to decide if they want to risk you having a Maul or not, if they're going to flip their leader. And that is just such a vile thing to be doing to your opponent. And sometimes you just win games right off the bat. You know, they flip Han Solo, boom, you kill him and survive. They flip Rey, kill him and survive. They flip Luke, kill him and survive. Maul is just a total game changer in matchups like that, and really prevents some of those late game decks from stealing that tempo back from you. Very good stuff. But sometimes we're not having the most aggressive game of our lives, we're losing tempo ourselves, and we just need to get back into things. We play 2 copies of Darth Vader. I mean, Darth Vader's just a monster, man. 5/7, ambush, and then go and find your own villainy 3-drop or less, or a 2 and a 1. We don't play any 1s in this deck, so it is just a 3 or a 2. Play it for free and just get back in the game. Vader's probably going to kill something himself. He's going to stick around. He's going to be a tough thing that your opponent has to answer, and just grabbing any 3-drop is just so good. He can grab your Sentinels. He can grab, you know, your First Legion Snowtrooper, who can be a threat late game. Again, Overwhelm. We have a lot of Overwhelm in this deck, and it's really how we reach out to close those games sometimes. 2 Vaders is just good. He gets you back in the game. That's it for our ground units. Let's kick off our space units. So we're going to stay really aggressive here with 3 copies of Kylo's TIE Silencer. We have no way in this deck to use the action if it was discarded from the deck or hand. We have no way to activate that. However, sometimes your opponent will pillage you and you'll have one of these in hand and you can play it, and that's pretty dope. But for the most part, guys, this is just a 3/2 in space. From turn 1 onwards, it kills anything, it trades with anything in space, it kills A-Wings and survives. This card's it's just really good. It's also just a very aggressive card, just a 3-power start in space on turn 1. It's really good. There are games where you just open with this and your opponent doesn't find an answer fast enough and it deals way too much damage. Same can be said for the 3 copies of our Punishing One. Just another 3-drop, 3-power space unit, and between 4 health, it survives trading with a lot of things, and the Underworld tag makes it a great target for Maul. All of that on top we get when an upgraded enemy unit is defeated, you can ready this unit. Only once each round, but man, this ability is crazy. Think about all those flip turns I've been explaining this entire time. Now add in another 6 damage from the punishing one attacking twice. That's how you get to those 20 damage flip turns, and things get really out of hand with this card sometimes. A lot of times too, you can also like kill 2 different things in one turn with this card. This card's an amazing barrage target, lets you throw around so much power. One of my favorite things to do is barrage the punishing one, swing with it for 5, and then if you have like a cheap bounty or if something already is bountied, go and kill the thing with a bounty, ready it back up and swing for 5 again. You can also just swing for 3 with it, kind of make them think that you're not really barraging that turn, then barrage this guy for 5, kill the upgraded thing, ready him back up and then swing for 5. One of the best plays in this deck too that you can do is if there's a bounty unit out there, you can drop a Vader, search out a punishing one, ambush and kill the bounty thing with Vader, and then ready the punishing one right off the bat. This card's loco. I will also ECL in this card a whole lot. Put a bounty on something, ECL this in, kill the unit with the bounty on it in space, and then ready it back up. It's so good. We also play 3 copies of the Imperial Interceptor, another really good space unit. One of my favorite things about playing Aggression Villainy is its space lineup. Aggression Villainy is my favorite color combo, and its space is so fun. This guy just coming in and busting any space unit for 3 damage is really amazing. There's great plays you can make with this. You can ECL this in to kill 2 different things at once. Drawing this card when they don't have any space feels a little bad, but even so, it's just another 3 power threat that you could put down over there. Our last space unit and our last unit in the deck is going to be 3 copies of Ruthless Raider. When I say Aggression Villainy is my favorite color combo in the game, it's because I have to admit to you guys, I don't know how to play the card game without Ruthless Raider. It is so good. That on play and when defeated, resulting in 4 damage spread between units and their base is so good. If they don't instantly answer the card, it's going to swing for 4 at least one time. That's 8 damage to base in total. Ruthless Raider is just a beast. It really punishes the control decks. 4 damage from a unit that gets removal spelled is way more than you can ask of absolutely any other unit in your deck in those control matchups. The ECL plays with this one are very good. You can ECL this in to immediately take out Effet's Fire Spray and survive. You can ECL this into an Avenger if the game goes later than we're comfortable with, to immediately take out the Avenger. People just aren't ready for it, and spamming these just kind of finishes off a lot of games. Really the perfect curve for this deck is get that really big flip turn, get your 15 or so damage in, drop a Raider on 6 and drop a Maul on 7, a lot of surprise damage from hand, and then you just steal that victory right away, right then and there for them. Now moving on to the events, we don't have very many of them because we have to play a lot of units to keep our, our trades up. We've got to play a lot of bounties because we're a Bossk deck. But of course, when it comes to events, we have to play the triple overwhelming barrage. I mean, guys, overwhelming barrage needs no introduction. Buffing a thing with +2/+2, getting to spread that power as damage among units, and then getting to swing with that power buff as well is insane. Just like with Steadfast, one of the strongest things we can do in this deck is just ramp to our 5-cost deploy leader 1 turn quicker, flip him with 4 power, and then barrage him to spread 6 damage and then swing for 6. It's a board wipe, you're blasting them for a bunch. It's just super duper strong. It's been strong ever since the game came out. It's again one of those things that made Boba Green so good. Even though this deck isn't yellow, it's kind of very Boba Green adjacent, just because you have this system where you're taking out their units, but you're also pushing a lot of damage at the same time. You've just kind of got a lot more combo pieces and a lot more moving parts there, but sometimes the ceiling can even be a little higher because your damage potential with some of these bounties or your tempo potential is insane. And then the last card in our deck, guys, is we just have 3 copies of Open Fire. I think this is like the most flexible spot in the deck here. I really like Open Fire, just being able to deal 4 damage to something. Same thing as I was explaining with the First Legion Snowtrooper. Between a bounty, a Bossk ping for 1, and then an Open Fire, you can take out any 5 health unit, which is pretty sweet. I think it's also very reasonable for these to be something like Force Chokes, which then you can take out any 6 health unit, but only on the ground. Well, not vehicles, so not even all the ground. But I like Open Fire being able to deal damage to space units. It gives you more outs to some early game A-Wings and stuff against Sabine. Your space is really strong, but sometimes you just don't be drawing your space, bro. So Open Fire is really good. I also think that given how aggressive this deck is, this slot could also potentially be something like Daring Raids, because, if you want to go a little bit smaller and spend a lot less resources and keep playing guys on top of the removal, Daring Raid plus a Boss Ping kills anything that's 3 health, which is also like It's a much lower echelon of, 5 or 6 health units, but it's still a whole lot of units. So I think there's a little bit of flex here. I just get scared of some units, so I really like the open fires to deal with the space. There's also worlds where instead of like the open fire slot being more removal, it could be some kind of tech pieces like Palpatine Returns, or maybe even timely interventions, because we have so many good ambush targets in this deck. Things like Django and Steadfast and Snowtrooper, all with that sweet overwhelm damage coming in. Being able to replicate more surprise damage from the hand is really good. Timely can have some strong plays, especially being an only smuggle option in the deck, in a deck that dumps its hand a lot. As far as this deck's matchups are concerned, other aggro decks we go very favorably into because we're really good at killing units. It's really efficient for us to kill units and keep pressure on their base. It's kind of what our deck wants to do, and it's really typical to be able to outrace anything with the right draws, even Sabine herself. The mid-range matchups are all things that you can navigate pretty well, considering you have an ample amount of ramp. You have things like Steadfast and Maul to take out leaders before they can get too problematic, and in general, anything that's trying to get away with like troublesome units, especially things with like shield, we can eat them alive. The Bossk is so good at taking out shields, which is actually really relevant given how good Kira is in the format. And then the late game decks is where things can start to get a little bit scary. If Blue Villainy gets you to like 8 or 9 resources and you don't have them in like 5 health or less range, it can be tough to close those games out. If Vigilances come out and you start healing, or if Avengers come out and start getting you locked down, those can be really tough to navigate because they're going to use events to lock you out of the game, whereas the Heroism late game decks are pretty easy for us to counter because they mostly focus on ground and we're really good at busting units, and if they do start to try and contest us in space, we have a lot of things that we can respond with really efficiently. Now, the Heroism decks that are a little bit problematic sometimes are the Pillage decks. The blue solo decks are the Ray decks of any kind that are really focusing on the hand disruption can be really tough. Again, you really empty your hand out quick in this deck, and that means you can leave yourself really vulnerable to the hand control. I'd say being stonewalled by Blue Villainy control and getting just wrecked by Pillage are really the two main blowouts playing a deck like this. So they're things that you have to watch out for. And that's going to be a wrap on this ECL Bossk deck profile. I think once you can really start to see a lot of the cards come together, everything is really synergistic at working with each other, clearing their board while dishing out a ton of damage and getting these sweet bounty combos off. I think this deck is so much fun to play. I've got nearly 1,000 games on this thing. I've been playing it so much. It's an absolute blast. I would love to hear your feedback in the comments section below on things that we can possibly innovate on even more with the deck. Or if there's something you're curious about that you don't see me playing, I've probably tested it, so feel free to ask about it below. Let's get this conversation going and talk more about what I think is secretly one of the best leaders in the game to be playing right now. I think it took people a hot minute to catch on, but now Bossk is gaining some serious traction, and I'm really excited to see where those Bossk lists go. A lot of ways you can go with this guy, and like I said, I am also testing a really big Chungus 30 hit point base, full ramp, full big boys build that I've been having a lot of success with as well, but it's something I'm still really innovating on, so you might see it on the channel at some point, you might not, who knows where it'll end up. Either way, this leader is a ton of fun. I love the Lizard Man, and I hope that you can get some reps in with this deck and have as much of a blast as I do figuring out all these cool bounty combos. Thanks so much for watching all the way until the end. If you want to see more Star Wars Unlimited content coming up, please hit the subscribe button because I've got some other really cool stuff in mind. And I really want to start getting some more of my decks out there, some more of my locals decks out there, and really jam some in-person gameplay as well. I've got a lot of stuff on the horizon, and I'm really excited to put some cool stuff out there for y'all to watch. Until then though, thanks again for watching, and I hope I see you in the next one. Take it easy, guys.